The soup spills across your wrist, and you do not make a sound. The steward crosses the hall before the stain has even soaked through your sleeve. He takes the tray from your hands without a word and hands it to another boy standing near the wall. You eat nothing that night but bread. A servant who spills on a guest does not eat what the guests ate. You are 11 when the steward first tests you, months before the spill. He hands you a jug of wine and tells you to fill every cup down the length of a table crowded with knights who do not look at you once. Your hands are small, the jug is heavy, you do not spill. He does not praise you. He writes something on a wax tablet and moves to the next child waiting in the corridor. Livery comes at Michaelmas, a length of gray wool cut and dyed the same for every kitchen servant, so a glance across the hall tells the steward exactly who belongs where and who does not. Hall servants wear a darker cloth. You will not wear it for years yet. Where you sleep is decided the same way rank decides everything else here. Kitchen children on straw pallets by the ovens, hall servants on benches nearer the Lord's chamber, because proximity while you sleep is worth almost as much as proximity while you serve. Wages, such as they are, come twice a year and rarely in coin. A length of cloth at Michaelmas. Boots before winter if the steward judges your old ones worn through. A few pennies at Easter if the harvest has been good. You learn to value things the way the household values them, not in what they are worth in a market you rarely see, but in what they mean about your standing within these walls. A servant with 2 lengths of cloth folded beneath his pallet is a servant who has not been found wanting in a long while. You keep count of your own without ever saying so aloud. 6 months into the kitchen, a boy 2 years older than you disappears from the roster. Nobody says where he went. You ask once. The head cook tells you to fetch water and does not answer. You find out 3 days later, hauling ash from the bake ovens, when you see him again. He is standing at the edge of the courtyard with his left hand wrapped in cloth, missing 2 fingers, caught stealing bread from the larder during a lean month before harvest. The steward did not send him away. He kept him, because a boy who has paid that price does not steal again, and a servant who does not steal again is worth more than one who has never been tested at all. You carry that image with you every time your own hand reaches towards something that is not yours to take. By 13, you carry dishes in the hall instead of scrubbing pots in the kitchen, close enough now to hear the Lord speak without being spoken to. Nobody explains the promotion. You arrive one morning to a different task and understand what it means. When the Lord's household travels between his manors, which it does 3 or 4 times a year, you are the one who breaks down the trestle tables and packs the plate and linen into carts, because a Lord's presence is what turns an empty hall into a household, and the packing has to keep pace with him. A manor that has stood empty for months smells of damp and mice before the fires are lit again. The linen packed too tightly in the carts arrives creased and has to be pressed before the Lord's guests arrive. You learn which roads flood in spring and which manors have kitchens too small for the number of mouths that descend on them, because the household carries its size with it wherever it goes, and a kitchen built for 20 must somehow feed 60 for the fortnight the Lord chooses to stay. For weeks before the trouble arrives, there are signs a servant learns to read before anyone says a word aloud. Extra grain bought and stored beyond what the season calls for. The smith summoned to pull old hauberks from a chest and beat the rust out of them. The Lord's temper shortening over faults nobody would have noticed a month before. The messenger arrives at the gate one evening, covered in mud from a hard ride, and the hall goes quiet before he has said a single word. You are standing 3 feet from the Lord's chair holding a pitcher when he speaks. War. A neighboring Lord's men crossing the border at first light. The gates close the next morning and do not open again for a long time. Food is rationed by rank, and your rank is low, so your portion shrinks first and shrinks fastest. You carry water to the men on the walls in the dark, moving low along the parapet, where an arrow from below can still find anyone who stands too long in one place. You watch the granary, that once held enough grain to see the whole castle through winter, empty itself by half in a month, and you do the arithmetic every servant in a siege does without anyone teaching them how. How many weeks of this bread? How many days of this water? What happens after the answer reaches nothing? On the 40th night, the Lord calls every servant into the hall, not to serve, but to stand. He tells them the enemy has offered terms. Surrender, and everyone inside walks free. Hold the walls and starve, or hold the walls and win, and nobody in the hall can say with any certainty which of the two it will be. He does not ask the servants their opinion, he never has, but he watches their faces while he speaks, the way a man watches weather he cannot control. You do not know what your own face is doing. The boy with 2 fingers gone, standing beside you, does not look away from the Lord once. The siege breaks 3 days later, not from a battle won, but from a relief force on the ridge at dawn, and the gates stay shut 2 more days out of caution before anyone believes it is truly over. That same night, carrying broth to the wounded along the same dark parapet, your hands shake from cold and from something else you do not have a word for, and you do not spill a drop. The Lord dies 11 years later, an old man by then, of a fever that takes him in a week. His son inherits the manors and, with them, the household. Some of the older servants are kept on out of habit or loyalty. Others are sent back to the villages they came from within a season, because a new lord often wants a household that owes its loyalty to him alone, not to the man who trained them. The old steward, the one who tested you with the jug all those years ago, is among those sent away. He is given a small pension, more out of custom than kindness, and a cart to carry what little he owns back to a village nobody in the household can name for certain. Nobody organizes a farewell. He simply is not at breakfast one morning, and by the time anyone thinks to ask, his room has already been given to someone else. You are kept on. His post does not stay empty long. The new lord needs a steward who already knows every servant, every debt, every wax tablet gone quiet for years, and there is only one person left in the household who does. You are the one who tests the children now, handing a jug to a boy of 11 whose hands shake exactly the way yours once did, watching to see whether he spills. He does not spill. You do not tell him what happens if he had.